Hey Annie, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. I was saying to you before we hit record, we've had a lot of food entrepreneurs in like the last sort of 10 episodes or so. So we took a little bit of a break, but we're back with you, and I'm really excited because we've had a few like coffee brands before, but I don't think to the scale of you guys. So I'm like genuinely really excited to have you guys on. Um yeah, just really excited basically.
Good. We're thrilled. We're excited. Or I guess I'm excited since it's just one of me here, but thrilled to be here.
Yeah, because you're a team of three, right? Like as the founders.
We are, and we have our fourth person joining us now, but two founders, Charlotte and I, and then Emily is our head of business development, does everything, jack of all trades.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've had two people on the podcast before in one go, as in like me and two other people, and like that's okay, that's fine to record. But then three people, it would get really like just hectic, loads of people talking over each other. In person, it would work fine, but it's just over like this. I feel like yeah, people would listen and be like, "What's going on?" There's just too many. There's too many people talking.
No, I agree. I've tried to limit any Zoom meetings to one principal person being there because anytime both sides, the second you get to four people, it just no one's paying attention, or all
Yeah, it's
us.
when you get like people, especially the founders, when they're so excited about the idea or their product, and they're all kind of obviously, if you start talking about your vision and stuff, like I know your co-founder will probably chip in and be like really excited as well,
Yeah.
and then I'll chip in as well because I like it when I feed off the passions of founders. That's something I really love. So it's like yeah, I think it would just be like way too hectic.
No, Charlotte
Um,
and I are also
but I think it'd be
best
really good
friends.
for
So
people to kind of yeah, go on. Sorry.
no, I was just saying we're also like best friends. So we would probably keep like then start chatting to each other on the side and forget where exactly we were supposed to be going with it.
Yeah, and I'll just leave. I'll be like, yeah, like, we don't you don't really need me anymore. So it would be good, like, for people to find out a bit, like, I guess a short introduction about what is Bottleshot before we jump into kind of like how you started and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So Bottleshot is cold brew coffee. We have our
Oh, you got
current.
the product right there.
I do.
Audio listeners, you are missing out right now. She's holding two lovely bottles,
Uh,
cans.
yes, we have one that is our black coffee, and one is with oat milk. And so this is a cold brew coffee, but really it's a ready to drink coffee. If you like iced coffee, getting introduced to cold brew, you will like it even more. So we are uh, coffee.
It's
Um,
just iced coffee. Yeah, simple.
yeah. The so
Well, it's not. It's yeah. Go on.
I was just gonna say. So we are these two flavors. You can buy them in store or on our website, but essentially we just felt like the ready to drink coffee, which is our category, which is really just the any sort of energy drink on shelf where you grab it to go or you don't have time to make it or pop in a shop and you just sort of want a great energy boost right then. That's sort of our role in what we play. And we felt like there was a gap where you couldn't really find a really just proper coffee, traditional coffee flavor, high quality, not full of ton of sugars or flavorings or
Mm,
chemicals. And so that is really what we've set out
yeah.
to do using cold brew coffee, which is just uh, a a way of making it really high quality and without any of the junk involved. So that's what we do.
Before we jump into the UK sort of market and like what you kind of observed before you started, I think it'd be really good to find out, I guess, the origin story of how you came up with the idea because I know you're originally from the US and I think like the journey starts there, right?
Yes. Uh, from the US, and cold brew coffee has always been a thing in New Orleans, and that's just sort of what we associated it with. We thought about it as a very regional thing. You know, my mom makes cold brew every single night in her fridge. That's sort of just always been a local, sort of nostalgic thing for us. But Charlotte and I have always loved the way that you feel on cold brew coffee. It's such a smooth energy, and it tastes so delicious. It's just a great way of making it. And so we had always known it, loved about it, would talk about it, and we realized that when you look at the U.S., a bunch of challenger coffee companies from La Colombe to Blue Bottle to Wandering Bear. These are a lot of coffee brands who started popping up over the past 10 years, uh, from California to San Francisco. They had all discovered cold brew, and they started using it as a way to make ready to drink coffees really high quality. And that was something that was just such uh, an easy aha to us of you can of being able to take something that we always loved and be able to shake up a category. The US has, you walk into a Whole Foods in the US now and it's an entire aisle of ready to drink coffee. It's not just
Mm.
a few brands. So it's absolutely taken over every convenience store. The coffee fridges are actually bigger than the Red Bulls or Monster Energies or Gatorades or waters. All it's just become its own. It's become the priority. And when we were here, we would go around. You go to a coffee shop, but really in store, we couldn't find anything that did the same thing. We could find an
Yeah.
option that would have a little bit of caffeine in it. I'd take and maybe be okay for like a half hour, or taste delicious, but oh wow, that was such a treat for myself. Like I shouldn't really be doing this every day. And so we just
Yeah.
decided that we would do sort of that same shaking up of the category that they achieved over there. We just decided we would, we're living here, staying here, and decided we wanted to have the same thing.
I think that's really cool. It's a strategy that a lot of companies use actually, like not just in the food space, but in, technology, in like
Or
consumer goods. It's in
Deliveroo.
pretty much a lot of different things.
Yeah. In between food and technology, Deliveroo, I've heard
Mm.
this. I've never actually heard it from them themselves, but Seamless in the States, they took the concept, brought it here, did a better job, and have succeeded so well so far.
Yeah, exactly. Like people might see it as like copying or whatever, but it's like taking an idea and it's all about execution, right? Like at the end of the day. So when you see some sort of ideas that you feel like could work in your actual in your own country, I'd really like hearing stories like that actually. I think they're really cool.
Well, we actually, when we
But
started thinking about this, we know people who work at some of those coffee places, and we actually called them originally and said, "We're so excited! We've just realized that cold brew has taken off. When are you coming to Europe?" And we actually called uh, 2 to 3 people and said, "When are your companies coming?" And they said, "It's going to be the next rise. Everyone thinks it's going to go there next, but we're all focused on growing here. We can't split focus. We can't split resources.
hmm.
So sit tight." And it was almost when they told us to sit tight that Charlotte and I decided, no, we can do this.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people see, I guess, the ideas in the US, and a lot of companies do start like the ideas do start in the US and they transition to like Europe or the rest of the world. It can work the flip side also, but I think a lot of people see that as a deterrent. So they're like, oh, it like they're doing it in the US, so it's like, why should I do it here in Europe or like wherever you are? And it's like people don't realize how massive the North American markets are. Like they're gonna be like working through them for the foreseeable future, especially if they're a startup and a few people. It's like by far bigger than European markets. Like people don't realize that.
No.
So I don't see it as a deterrent. I see it as like concrete validation that it works somewhere.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And if the if the origin of the idea, kind of no matter which continent it's coming from, if the origin, we did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people and shared cold brew and had people taste it and talked to people about their coffee buying habits and were they open and interested to sort of what we wanted to do. If there's a gem of an idea there, it's applicable across so many places, but also the US is huge. Those three companies that I mentioned, they're sort of sat like here, here, and here, and they're all still trying to gain, enough foothold
Yeah.
as each other. It's massive.
Yeah, it's huge. So I'd love to kind of before we jump into, I guess, the European markets and what you saw there, it'd be good to find out a bit like about yourself and also your co-founder's background because this is your first time in, I guess, the food space, right?
It is. We were close to the food space, but we were in technology. Charlotte's first company was a restaurant payment app. You could book, split your bill, pay the bill all through this app, and it was a bit, so we were working with restaurants like Inception Group and a lot of high quality places. So we were close. We were on the actual
Mm.
we're we were on the tech side. Neither of us are coders. Charlotte understands coding very well and ran the business, and then my job there was customer strategy. So my background has always been what is product market fit? How do you find the right people? How do you make sure that your product that you're talking about it to get it out there in the right way? How do you make sure it's got stickiness? All of that. So we sort of thought our two skill sets applied to starting a startup and wanting to sell a product, at, but we are definitely new to F&B. So we, in the beginning, we actually went and pitched Soho House before we even had a product to go on shelves, and sort of went through, we really believe in the quality of this. We believe that this is going to be something that your customers will love. They agreed. And we did that as a way to build credibility, because Charlotte and I saying it tastes amazing doesn't mean anything to anyone, especially doesn't mean anything to retail
Yeah,
buyers.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've sort of taken an approach of, as we grow and as we build, how to honestly, it's like seeking affirmation from people who have already sort of built
Mm.
their credibility in the space, and how do we share our product and our story with them to get them to lend a little bit of their stamp of approval on us. That's our way of sort of sneaking into the F&B market.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I'm really interested to find out more, I guess, about the whole like steps towards validation, because obviously, like, this was a really popular sort of sub-market category within the US, but within Europe, as you said, it wasn't really like growing much. There are a few brands that are in this market, especially the Starbucks and a few other ones. But like we talked about this, moving an idea from say US to Europe, but how can you kind of validate whether there is an appetite for that sort of thing in this market, and whether it translates effectively to here?
yeah.
Because that would be, a lesson for a lot of different ideas, not just food.
No, I mean, it's for every idea. Even if
Yeah.
you're not translating something, how do you start to go about testing the concept? Whether it's, you know, I would even essentially call our first ones of these prototypes, and we went around
Exactly. Yeah.
getting feedback. We did it from a lot of different inputs. So first, the first stage was just looking at market data. You know, what are the experts saying? Coffee is a very ingrained category. There is a ton of available data there. And for context, the category is tiny here. It's ready to drink coffee is 2% of the coffee market in Europe. In the States, ready to drink is 22% of the coffee market. So it's completely reaching maturity. It has
Wow.
strong foothold. It's but it used to be nothing. Like, that grew very quickly over the course of 10 years. And so we're looking at Europe, and same thing here. They're expecting exponential growth year over year to sort of replicate that same thing. But then with that, do we have an understanding of the category? Like, is our perspective sort of in line with what will drive that growth? How do we find the right people to do it? So we took market data. We then ran our own market research. We also went around to we were working in a co-working space. We brought in coffees. We had everyone try. We had everyone we know try. Making sure that we didn't just have British people try, but Italian and French, and get everyone. And there's so much culture when it comes to coffee that we sort of learned, okay, like, this is who's more likely to adopt it first, who might be a little later, farther afield, and how are we talking about it in a way that actually syncs with how they know and interpret coffee, because it's going to be different from ours. And then
Mm.
a lot of iterations on recipe, a lot of taste testing, blind taste testing, to make sure that we
From the data you gathered from the taste tests, from the data.
from yes. So, well, no, because we always had I think Charlotte and I are very passionate about what we think amazing coffee tastes like. And so it was sort of the data of
Mm.
how do honestly, just doing our own due diligence. Do we think this matches with what the trend reports are saying? Do we think we can talk to people about it in the right way? Who are we going to be targeting? and where is that buyer? Like if we're in Whole Foods, is our buyer, is that person there? Like making sure that we're putting our retail strategy against the right consumers, and all like the business plan. And then with that,
Hmm.
we can have a really smart plan, we can be fully prepared and feel like we've absolutely nailed it. As a food or beverage, it just matters about product experience. It has to be at, Oatly doesn't have to do any marketing if they don't want, because everybody talks about Oatly for them, because people find it to be a
Hmm.
delicious and great. It's perfect for lattes, a great product. So then from there, we like in addition to the research, we did so many blind taste tests on recipe to make sure, is this absolutely perfect? Does it hold up? All of that. So kind of threefold.
That's quite I was gonna say that's quite rare actually. In other, I've just kind of made this observation now. I'm just throwing ideas out there, but it's quite rare that you get that strategy within like overall other markets. Like when you say Oatly doesn't need to do any marketing spend, like we call like it's called like product led growth, where the only thing you need to lead to, I guess, growth within your product is to make the product better. Whereas in other industries, you have to do other things like find where your consumers are and I guess market to them very heavily. The only other example I can think of is I guess like Shazam. They didn't market very heavily, but because like word of mouth was so strong,
Yeah.
they got people adopting very quickly. And it's quite interesting that you say they don't need to market, they just need to make their product better. I don't know if that's like really unique for the food space where like it is all about user, people taste it and it's kind of like maybe you're playing on I guess the habitual nature, the addictive nature. I don't really know, but it's really interesting that you said that.
Well, I think it was probably a little bit of both for them, because I believe part of their original strategy was going through baristas and getting baristas to be their true champions, because the actual
Mm,
body of oat milk is a game changer versus, almond or his, other ones that have been there already. And so almost their strategy was, we're going to build word of mouth, and word of mouth will like naturally beget itself. Um, but yeah, and I would say the same about Shazam. I definitely have never seen, and I've seen Oatly's ads. I don't mean that they don't market. I just mean that I think their strongest
mm.
tool is word of mouth. And Shazam, I definitely found from a friend, and have no idea
Yeah,
which friend
yeah.
he found it from.
And that's like the holy grail for a lot of brands. Like they don't because obviously every brand out there has to focus quite heavily on the quality of their product, like whatever it is. But it's when the only thing you need to do is focus on your product and it will grow. That's like you don't really get that. That's really rare. That's like an amazing thing.
Yeah, and we are not Oatly, but we are hyper obsessed with customer feedback. Before we even jumped on, I love to send our coffees and get people to feedback to me.
Yeah.
We save every single comment, even if someone says it verbally, writes it in, posts it on a story. We have a channel that we save all feedback in, and like we analyze that from every perspective, because also it helps with new product development. If somebody is looking for, well, decaf, or it's just helpful to sort of know how are people perceiving the drinks. Is what you think you've created really true, or you know
Hmm.
so it's so important. And it also, as as running a startup, it is a slog sometimes, and we do get amazing customer feedback, and it's just so uplifting, keeps you going, because you realize this isn't only something that like I really want, but there's so many people that are really appreciating it and seeing that same. I'm so happy. Like we get told so often, I'm so happy I found you,
Hmm.
and it's incredibly uplifting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it'd be amazing to kind of move on to because you said how like a large part of your growth, I guess, has been attributed to, I guess, the actual quality of the product itself. So I'd be really interested to find out more about, I guess, what other factors do you see like as kind of the key things behind your growth? Because yeah, you've been running for like a year and a half now, and we're gonna go into like who's like big news about who's stocking you soon. But yeah, it'd be good to find out a bit more about that.
Uh, so I guess in terms of, oh, you mean growth? Do you mean in terms of how we're actually like making the product, or do you mean growth in terms of like how are we getting it out there and getting brand awareness and people to try it?
Yeah, like brand awareness and sales and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting year, which everyone can say. We have, when we first launched, we got Whole Foods March of 2020, and our first plant drinks, it matters what they taste like, it matters your experience with caffeine. It all does come down to that, for why you're going to keep returning to it and be a consumer of it. And so our original plan was to get out there and just do samplings and tastings. We did one
Mm,
demo in Whole Foods right as everything was like, okay, no, we're shutting down. So we've in that time we've done a lot of co-brand partnerships. We've done stuff with Halo Top. We've done stuff with alcohols. We've done stuff with, pressed juice, and sort of tried to. I think a lot of brands actually came together and said, well, how do we use our own channels and share channels and help promote each other and help get people out there.
mm,
Press Juice was amazing. They actually they have their juices, soups, meals kits, and they at the beginning of lockdown said we're gonna start offering a grocery, and they started loading a ton of other brands there that were synonymous with breakfast and sort of those similar types of eating. And like people got inventive, and people got Press
yeah.
had a great fulfillment set up, and they're like, let us help you sell. So a lot of
Mm,
co-brand stuff, a lot of online. We also, because we couldn't get out there and couldn't do sampling, we launched a taster pack on our website. So you can order a box that's just one of each can. And we also did, certain things where for months and months, the Zoom fatigue, send a set to a friend or a coworker, and we'll send you a set back for you. Just trying to get people who
mm,
hadn't experienced coffee yet. Of course, you're not going to buy a 6 or 12 pack of a drink you've never had. Here's an easy way to experience our brand. And So a lot of it has been that recently. And then working on securing additional placements. We've never taken our eye off of sort of retail and physical footprint, because that is what will ultimately be. I mean, ease of buy, our category is ready to drink. Of purchase is so important to us. So continuing to grow our footprint around England, absolutely critical for us. And
mm.
we're doing our first national launches coming up next month. So we're really excited for lockdown ending, getting out there, even starting to talk about some safe outdoors events if Taste of London goes on. Uh, we have high hope.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it sounds really cool. And I think I'd love to kind of talk a bit more about, I guess, the brand partnership stuff, because it sounds like that's something that you've pushed quite hard. And it's something that we actually haven't spoken about on the podcast before as a growth strategy, and it's obviously like a very big one. So how important was that for you, especially in the early stages, or even like now, right? And like how did you kind of go about doing them?
So we didn't really do them in the early stages. The early stages, our strategy was actually, again, going back to the how do we build credibility, we sent out to editors and to influencers in the space and just sort of said, will you review our coffee? We got fantastic, Forbes, Vogue UK, Wired, Vanity Fair. That was sort of how we built. And when our strategy was, well, if we can show that, experts like this product, it's going to be easier to then sell in as a new brand to retailers who are taking a risk on us. So that was sort of our strategy for how do we
Mm,
make retailers want to take it is always a risk with a new brand. So how do we convince them that we're an appealing, you know, low level risk or high opportunity? And then when we went into lockdown, that's sort of when actually all the brand partnerships started. And I think it happened a little naturally. It was a really confusing time. It was a very unsure time. All of our, traditional clients were, whether it was the grocery stores were flooded or the, restaurants not knowing what to do. It was a bit of a weird space where I think a lot of brands actually just started chatting and talking together. And how are you helping support your clients over here? What are you doing up here? You know, there's are you shutting down, but like, are you pausing all marketing? And I think a lot of that came from everyone that we
mm,
talked to. It was like, we're just, using this as a testing ground and seeing what sticks. We're open to doing whatever. So we started doing whether it was like recipe collaborations or giveaways, contests, or anything that was, we sold Rude health milks on our website for a while because we got a bunch of customers saying they wanted um, almond milk option, and we don't have that. So a lot of different things I think
Yeah.
came out of just an unknown period and everyone saying, well, let's get creative and let's try stuff and let's help each other out. I will also say the food
Yeah, I really like
drink
that. Do you think
industry has been incredibly, everyone is so kind, everyone is willing to help share insight or what has worked for them, what hasn't, to give advice. It's been really amazing about the industry.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you think those sort of things will carry on, I guess, when things open up? Like you said, it was kind of big during, I guess, pandemic and lockdown and stuff. But do you think those sort of things, well, firstly, do you want them to carry on given like, what sort of growth you got from them? But also, do you think they will carry on, or do you think people kind of become more siloed again?
I think they'll carry on, and I hope they do. I think there's some that are natural long-term partnerships, like an alcohol with a seltzer water, or we espresso martinis. So we do a lot in that space. We definitely now have partnerships for espresso martinis that are those are real partnerships. Those will last. I think people have also found that you can get more creative on social channels and provide more interesting content by, with Halo Top, we did an affogato, which is the ice cream and coffee as like a dessert that, it's a fun little recipe
Mm,
and it's something interesting for our consumer. There's there's more legs to sort of each brand by being able to see, well, how do these products work together? What can we create out of them, or how do they complement each other? A lot, one person goes into a grocery store and buys a ton of different products. There's a lot of synergies and overlap with having the same target audience, and it goes beyond F&B too. Like we've done a lot with um, fitness studios and gyms because we sort of have that health and also caffeine for like a great workout angle. It's outside of your space as well. There's just I think it'll definitely stay.
mm. That's really cool. So, like, it's good that you're actively kind of pushing that. And I guess for people listening with a brand or, they're thinking about starting something and they think, partnerships is like a really good growth strategy for them. What kind of tips would you give to them? Like, what sort of things have worked for you? Or, like, what sort of stuff, like, do you feel like is really valuable for that?
Well, one thing I would say in that is that I wish I had started that a year ago. And I also wish I had started just asking people who've done what I'm trying to do before. Hit them up, ask. Everyone is so kind. They might be willing to talk you through that. And I don't mean like, oh, I've done coffee before. I mean, we're trying to do better at web. Do you know whose website I love? They don't have to be in food and beverage, but
Mm,
how did they get to that place? And what are they willing to share? Sort of what worked and didn't work. And I think so many more people are willing to talk than I ever realized. I think I took way too long to start just asking those questions, and I think that's also where brand partnerships come from. You find synergies that way.
mm,
Um, so I would say if I was going to go back and start again, I would look at not only from like the product and the target customers, but what all around my brand am I trying to do, and regardless of category,
mm,
who do you think is absolutely killing it in that space, and are they willing to talk to you and sort of share how you might want to think about your strategy or evolve theirs, or yeah.
mm. I think that's a really good note to actually like wrap up on, like the note of like collaboration, the note of I guess everyone working together to produce something a lot better for everyone. Really, it's something that's forgotten about massively. Like people do like to work quite hard on their own, but yeah, if there's people out there doing something that you love, why not hit them up and ask like how do they do those certain things? People, excuse me, people are more friendly than you might think. Like, in my journey, people have helped me massively. Whenever someone asks me about podcasting, I'm always willing to help them. And I know a lot of my friends who are in podcasting as well are the same. So, yeah, I love that message to end on.
Yeah, no, and as long as it doesn't, as long as you're not trying to rip it off, like take it from them, as long as
Yeah, yeah.
hurt them. I find when people ask for advice from us, I love that something we spent so much time on and blood, sweat, and tears is actually going to go somewhere else too. I'm like, oh, great. This
Yeah.
has even a higher value. It makes it feel, every success has some sort of like you trudged through to get there or you worked so incredibly hard on it. It's nice to see it go somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Annie, I can't wait to actually taste some bottle shot coffees.
Yes.
And actually we forgot to mention, because like the podcast episodes are so short, but you're actually launching in some big retailers that you like I'd love to find out about. And I think, yeah, what are those retailers?
Yes, so we are launching on Ocado pretty much any day now. And then we're launching in WH Smith Travel May 9th. And this is our first like big national accounts. We're so excited. Well, national accounts might not be the way to phrase it, but we're so excited. One of the
Yeah.
main questions we get online especially is how can I just buy one can, hence the taster packs, and excited that now it'll be just so much more readily available for everyone. And I
Mm.
will be sending you yours tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very quickly, obviously, like, yeah, how did those conversations happen? Like, how did the whole process happen?
For Ocado, we were part of a taste test, and the head buyer loved us. He had first had cold brew in Greece and said, "This is absolutely what I miss. This is what I am looking for." Yes, so that was part of a taste test, and then WH Smith Travel actually during that demo at Whole Foods the buyer was there. And so actually that was another way of sort of, one stepping stone to another.
Opportunity leads to more, even if the opportunity, like, even if you didn't, like, the Whole Foods one you said didn't go as well as you thought, or
Well,
something
no,
along those
it was
lines,
the
right?
only one that we were able to do before the first.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So we had a plan of all these different
Mm,
events and tastings and getting out there, and then we had one, and then they all went away. But actually,
mm,
buyers are shoppers themselves wherever they live and are doing stuff. And so
mm.
I didn't know it at the time, but they reached out after the demo and said, "Love your product, but want to talk to you about our stores." So
Amazing. Well, yeah, if hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, your product will be on Ocado. WH Travel will take a bit more time, maybe like a couple weeks
yeah.
from when this podcast is going to release. But yeah, either way, you can find it on Ocado, hopefully, by the time that this is live. So yeah, thank you so much, Annie, for joining me. Is there anything, how else can people stay in touch with you and stay in touch with Bottle Shot in the meantime?
Our website, our Instagram. Honestly, if anybody does want any advice or anything, my email is on our website. We're 3.5 people. We're always around and available to chat. But yeah, website, Instagram, website, chat bot, my email. Anyway,
Cool. Annie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that you had a good experience also. And yeah, I'll see you soon.